Today we're going to talk about how to make a simple frame animation using Photoshop. Start by going to File, New. There's no file for you to open today. We're going to start with a blank page. Set your preset menu to Web. And then choose the size 800 by 600. This is actually pretty large for an animated GIF. But what we're going to be doing is super simple, and it won't make a very large file at all. So File, New, Preset, Web, and then change your size menu to 800 by 600 and click OK. So here's our canvas. We are going to do a simple bouncing ball animation. So go over here to your brush tool and then go up to your brush preset menu. Choose the second brush over. It's called hard round. If you're not sure which one is which, mouse over it. It should pop up and say hard round. That's the brush we want to use. We don't want to have a brush that has a feathered edge. Animated GIFs have a harder time saving and compressing gradients and shadows. So we're going to use hard round so we get a really nice small file size. And then set the size of your brush to, let's say, 75. That'll look just fine. 75 for your size. Make sure your mode is set to normal. Opacity and flow are set to 100. Here's a brush tip for you. If your brush doesn't look like a circle, if it looks like a crosshair like this, your caps lock is on. Turn off caps lock and you'll be able to see your brush. Now, before we start to do anything, you don't want to do anything in the background layer. We're going to leave that alone. Come down here to your new layer icon, this little sticky note looking icon down here at the bottom of the layers panel. Click that one time. It's going to be called layer 1. Usually, I would tell you what to name this layer. We don't usually want layers that are called layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, because it's hard to keep track of them once you get a lot of them. In this case, though, leave it named layer 1. That's going to come in very handy in a few minutes. Pick a color for your bouncy ball. I'll go with red. And then we're going to make the first frame of our animated GIF. Now, an animated GIF works like a flip book. Every page in a flip book is the thing that you're trying to move, like the ball or the running man or the bouncing cat or whatever it is you're making. Each page of the book, they move just a little bit. And then when you run them all together and you flip through the flip book, it looks like an animation. That's what we're doing here. So I want the ball to kind of go like this. Don't do this. I want the ball to kind of go here, bounce, bounce. Okay, that's what I want it to look like when it animates. So I'm going to start here just with one click. Okay, one click. Go ahead and do that in layer 1. Now, the next frame needs to be a separate layer. So come down here, click layer 2. And then wherever your ball is going to go, kind of keep an idea in your head of where the arc is and make the next frame right there. And then click the new layer and then the new frame, new layer, click, and then keep going. If I were cooler at my videos, at this point, I would do kind of a sped up thing where I go faster. And then all of a sudden I'm done. But I'm not that cool. So you're just going to have to watch me keep adding layers and clicking. Just like that. Okay, so I ended up with 13 layers. Doesn't really matter how many you've got. What matters is that each time the ball moves, you are in a separate layer. Go ahead and turn off all your layers except for layer 1. Now, we need a new panel open. Go to the window menu and pull down to timeline. And it'll open up a panel along the bottom. Usually panels are over here on the right. This one is a horizontal panel. It pops up at the bottom. There's a button here. Your button might say create video timeline. If it does, click on this little triangle right here and change it to Create Frame Animation. When you see Create Frame Animation right there, click that button and it'll make the first frame of your animation. Now, there's a couple things you need to know about this frame. First of all, it's set to a speed. Mine is set to no delay, 0 seconds. If you have your frame set to 0, this animation is going to zoom. Usually I go at 0.1 or 0.2, depending. But 0, no delay, is going to be too fast. Let's do 0.1 seconds and see how it turns out. The other thing you want to have set is down here, you can choose how your animation plays. Right now, mine is set to play one time and be done. You know what animated GIFs look like. They just play forever. We can set that to forever. Every once in a while, you might have an animation you want to change and say how many times you want it to play and then stop, especially animation on a website. You might not want to play forever and ever. You might want to have it play a few times and then stop. But we're going to set ours to forever. Now we got frame 1 done. It's time to do our other frames. At the bottom of the timeline, there's an icon, looks just like the new layer icon. It's the duplicate frames icon. Click that one time. Now you got frame 2. So frame 2 should line up with layer 2. So you turn off layer 1 and turn on layer 2. There you go. There's our 2 frames. If I hit play right now, look at that. We have an animation. All right, we're going to keep going. I'm on frame 2. Duplicate. There's frame 3. Turn off 2, on 3. And then we just keep going like that, duplicating frames and turning layers on and off until we get to the end of our cute little animation here. Now we did a bouncy ball. You could do a running man. You could do text that changes with each slide. So while I was just talking, I lost track of where I was at. The cool thing about this is frame 10, I know should have layer 10 turned on. So I know, okay, that's right. So I'm going to keep going. There's 11. So that's pretty handy. Now, if in the process of creating your animation, you mess up and you have to go back and make some changes, you might then end up with, layers that are numbered differently than your frame. But hopefully you do it in order and you've just got this really nice setup. I hit play now. Let's see what it does. Okay, looks like it kind of leaves the frame and then pops back over on the left side. Looks kind of nice. I want to show you one more thing that I want you to know when you're creating these animations. I'm going to hit stop here. There's this menu in the upper right-hand corner of your timeline panel. Go ahead and click that and look at it. Okay, there's a bunch of different things that you can do, which I could talk about in future videos, but the one I want you to look at here is this setting, new layers visible in all frames. Sometimes you want this selected, sometimes you don't. Usually you want it selected. Let's have it selected right now. It should be a check mark next to it. If there's not, select it and turn on that check mark for new layers visible in all frames. I want to have that selected so that, let's go to the background layer and let's change the color of our background. We could do that with an adjustment layer. Go right here to your this little circle with a half black, half white circle, and then choose solid color from that menu and pick a color that, ooh, that is rough. Don't do that one. Pick a color that you want to use for your background. There we go. There we go. That's nice. I'm going to do a yellow background. I'm going to click OK. Now, as soon as I click OK, you can see there, it added that yellow background to all of my frames. That's because I had new layer visible in all frames. If I hadn't had that turned on, it would have added yellow only to my current frame, which in this case is frame 9. Okay. Now, there might be times when you want to add something and you don't want it to add to all your frames. Then you would turn this off. Go ahead and do that. Go ahead and turn off new layers visible in all frames. Go to frame 13 and let's add a frame 14. Go over here, click the little sticky note to duplicate your frame. For frame 14, let's turn off layer 13 and add some text. like whoops. Sure, why not? Eat it, Joe's. So I'm gonna have my bouncy ball go, and then it's gonna say, boom, eat it, Joe's. If I had new layer visible in all frames, it would have added Eat It Joe's to every one of my frames, which I don't want. I want it to pop up on the last frame. So when you go to add something after you've created your animation, after the fact, you want to make a change, look at this and decide, do I want this new thing to go on all my frames, or do I just want it to add to my current frame? Okay. All right. And when I do this, it goes boing, 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 Eat It Joe's. Eat It Joe's. I can barely see it. It goes by so fast. So I'm going to go to this one and set it to maybe 2 seconds. 1 second. Let's do 1 second. Let's see what that does. Now, when you preview, that's kind of good. When you preview your animated GIF, it's slower than it's going to be when you post it online or send it in a message. So if it seems to be going a little slow, it's probably fine. Um, don't put it at the speed you want because then it'll be too fast. All right, I'm gonna move Eat It Joe's down just a smidge, and then we'll save it. So to save your GIF, you go to File, Save for Web, not Save or Save As. To save it, you go to File, Save for Web. And it brings up your Save for Web dialog box where you've got a whole bunch of choices. And we look at our file size. Now, this is super tiny. 19K is a super tiny file size for an animated GIF. And that's because there's only two colors. It's because everything is very flat. There's no shadows, there's no gradients, and it's all very simple. It's mostly all yellow. But I could get it even smaller. Over here where it says colors, yours might be set to 256. At 256, the file size is no bigger. It's because I've only got two colors. But if I brought it down to 16, it does shrink a little bit. Even though it looks like there's only two colors, the transition between yellow and red actually uses a few different colors. You can see how many colors there are in this color table. And you can look at it. If you go less than 16, you're going to start to get a little dithering. If we go down to 8, the edges are starting to kind of fall apart a little bit. It still looks good. Let me hit play and see what it looks like. Nope. Actually, I lied. It doesn't look good. I don't like the way that looks. I'm going to go back up here to 32 colors, hit play, see how I feel about that. I could live with that. I could live with that, and I'm down to 16K. If you want to shrink it even more, you could change the image size here. Like I said, 800 by 600 is pretty big. Since it's already only 16K, we'll leave it. But you could change the image size. The smaller you go, the smaller your file size is going to be, and the faster your GIF is going to load when you upload it on a website or send it in a message or put it in a chat room or wherever you're putting this animation. When you're done there, you hit save. And you have the choice under format of images only and HTML and images. Nobody ever really uses the HTML and images setting anymore. Stick it to images only, give it a file name, and save it. Now let's go look at what we've got. I go to my desktop. Sorry, my desktop's kind of a mess. Eat It Joe's. We're gonna double click that and open it. It'll open up in probably the Photos app or the Photos program in Windows. And there we go. And you can see it's bouncing faster than it was in Photoshop. And it looks pretty nice. It's got that 1 second delay on Eat It Joe's. And there we've got a real simple animation. And now you can let your imagination run wild. It could be a guy that runs across the screen and jumps and swings from a vine, and you get it as fancy as you want. You also could do an animation that's just type. It could be a slideshow that gives information and runs at whatever speed you want it to run. There are a lot of different things you can do. The key is just making sure that each frame of that animation is a separate layer in your layers panel. And then it's just a matter of putting them in order and setting the timings. All right, can't wait to see what you guys come up with. Thanks for watching.